One time I came on the internet and I called my dad a Dusty, and it went mega viral. And it made a lot of men upset because my dad was what is kind of considered a passport bro now. I can talk about this side of my family because pretty much everyone is no longer alive, except for him, but he does not do social media, and there's a reason for that. So this is what my dad looked like when he was younger. I used to always get told that my dad was a very handsome man, even by the kids in my grade. He does not look like that anymore. He had a very, very, very rough childhood, right? So when he was 4, they were playing with bow and arrows, like the neighbor. The neighbor shoots up into the sky. My dad looks up at 4 years old and the arrow goes straight into his cornea. He ended up having a cornea transplant and it worked. However, his parents, my grandparents, were alcoholics who were pretty much in poverty a lot. My grandpa was an iron worker welder. So one of the things about working in that industry, they'll say a lot, is you live like a king and then you're dirt poor, especially people who don't know how to save or who are addicts. They tend to spend a lot of their money. So even though they always made good money, my dad always made good money, it went to funding their addiction. So unfortunately, my dad's transplant ended up rejecting because his parents were buying alcohol instead of buying his anti-rejection medication. So I grew up with a disabled father who was very able-bodied and worked very hard, but he went through a lot of trauma as a child. And this is also the fucked up part of my family. There was a story growing up that we heard about my dad, and it was always told like he left his parents' house in the middle of the night because they were fighting so bad and beating each other up. And he was under the age of 10 years old. They said he got on his tricycle, his bike. And this was a 40-minute drive by car. He got on his bike with nothing but his underwear on in the pouring rain and went the whole way to his aunt's house. So he actually ended up spending majority of his adult teen years with that aunt who is also an alcoholic. Now he is a short man. He is 5'8". He's French. That whole side of my family is very short. He had really big issues with being short. And so he always felt he had to prove his masculinity by starting fights. My dad was always in fights, but when my mom met him, he wasn't into his alcoholism yet. He tells now stories, right, from when they were together, but his recollection and memory isn't good because his brain has essentially been pickled from all these years of drinking. He always used to tell this story about I was his boat. My mom basically, he was going to buy a very expensive boat because he was working and making good money. He wanted to buy this expensive boat. My mom said, you have to choose if we're having kids or if you're going to go off and be a bachelor and buy all these toys. He also had a really nice Corvette with like a white leather interior. Like she was like, you have to make a decision. You're either doing that or you're having kids. So he decided to have kids. Fun fact he shares with us as adults is that he was trying to buy the boat to T-word snow. My mom was unaware. We don't know if how true this is really because he tends to make things bigger in his head now when he relays what happened in the past. Memory is not good. I have memories of going to visit my dad in prison when I was 4 because he had been drinking and driving. Now, one thing about people who are on the spectrum or the triad is they will generally pick like a favorite. I was his favorite. I was never on the receiving end of any vitriol from my father. My father made me believe I was capable of anything a man was capable of when he was around. Because again, being an iron worker and welder, he would go out of town a lot for work, which we later found out he was cheating on my mom. That man could have a whole second family. We'd be none the wiser. Eventually, my mom puts in a transfer at her work to go back to Thunder Bay where my family is and his family is because my mom had to plan her out because my dad was physically abusive. Now, this is not something that I personally witnessed growing up. In my mind, my dad was an amazing dad. I mean, there was a man in our backyard one time from down the road that was also an alcoholic. They used to be drinking buddies. My dad was the victim of child predatory behavior from family members when he was little. After 4, he's already lost his eye. They would send him back to Quebec with the family to learn French and to basically get away from his parents fighting. And one of the family members, I don't know who, they wouldn't disclose, was doing things to him when he would visit. So my dad has always been extremely, extremely, extremely vocal from the time I was little, probably sooner than I should have known, about what a child predator is and what they are capable of. And he had this drinking buddy, and the drinking buddy had a daughter my age, maybe a year younger. We were playing, and all of a sudden my dad fucking just lost his shit on this man. And I was surprised, and the man gets his daughter and they leave. Turns out that man looked at my dad and said, aren't our girls gonna be some hot B words when they get older? My dad went, what the fuck? Don't talk about my daughter that way. Absolutely lost his mind. That man was never allowed to set foot on our property again. It was really a disconnect with him because he was so in my mind, protective, never an issue with me, but I was the golden child. There's archetypes of relationship. I was a golden child. We end up moving back where all our family is, and that was part of my mom's plan to get a better paying job and leave my dad. So while he's out of town, she leaves him because he had escalated at one point where he physically tried to attack her in front of me and my sister in a vehicle while she was driving. So that was enough for my mom to finally say, it's it, we're getting a divorce. The entire side of my dad's family then decided we were no longer worth having around because how dare my mom leave him? Because as soon as my mom left him, he was now everyone else's problem. This happens a lot with these types of men. There will be a punching bag and everyone will be okay with that person or woman generally being the punching bag because it means that they aren't. But because she left, my grandma fucking flew off the handle because it is her precious, precious boy. And they felt extremely guilty for the way that they raised him. He grew up in a home where my grandmother was stepping out of the relationship because my grandfather was someone who used to lay hands on her. So when he was out of town working, she was having relationships with other men. And my dad one time went to jump into bed thinking his dad was home and it was a random man. Another time my grandpa came home and there was a random man and my grandpa had a pew and was going to do that, and then my dad walked into the room. It was a very, very, very dysfunctional house. My mom leaves him. Thank God she did. I don't think that my life would have taken the trajectory that it has had she stayed with him. Because again, he was escalating. My mom never talked shit about my dad. My dad talked shit about my mom all the time. He did not want to pay child support. He was court ordered to pay $150 per kid, which was nothing because he was a six-figure earner in the 90s. He refused to pay. She ended up having to go to family and child maintenance. She would have to basically go through the court system, have his passport pulled, have his driver's license pulled. He's been in and out of prison, I don't even know how many times. Beating women, stealing things, drinking and driving, then drinking and driving even though his license has been revoked, stealing license plates off of other people's cars, stealing the stickers off of license plates of other people's cars. One time he went into, he's the guy that, if you left something out, he would steal it. He stole, those big, table saws, because, again, iron worker, welder, and these people in construction. All my family was in that industry. So the big table saw was in the back of some guy's truck. My dad stole it, sold it to my uncle full price. And my mom had to go and tell my uncle. They have serial numbers. So my uncle actually lost it on my dad because they work in the same industry. This guy could find out that, he had this and assume that he stole it. I mean, he's the man who we would go shopping and he would try, it was so embarrassing. He would try and barter with someone who works at Aldo. I remember specifically it was Aldo. He was trying to barter with them to get belts or shoes for cheaper, and she's like, I can't, the price is the price. And he's trying to flirt with her, again thinking that he looks like this guy. He does not look like that guy, and he's old and she's obviously a teenager. I'm also a teenager, and he was asking, and I'm embarrassed, and we leave, and I'm trying to diffuse the situation, and I'm like, gosh, that girl was such a bitch. And he goes, not once I bent her over. And I remember being like, what the fuck? We would go for dinners with him. He would leave after the dinner. I'd be like, oh, do you want me to give you a ride home because I finally got a vehicle? And he's like, no, I'm gonna go across the street to the strip club. I remember him telling me a story about how he grabbed his girlfriend, came home from the bar drunk, grabbed his girlfriend by the hair, an Indigenous woman, dragged her down the hallway, threw her in the hallway with no clothes on, and then started laughing. And I remember just looking at him. I actually said to him, I was like, and if a man did that to me, you would unalive him. Genuinely, truly. And I remember the wheels turning in his head and just him being like, oh, he had never thought about that. I ended up having to file for bankruptcy when I was in my early 20s because of promises that he kept saying he was going to help me, because my 16-year-old sister was living with me and he didn't. And it caused a domino effect in my finances where I actually had to file for bankruptcy in my early 20s. I stopped talking to him. My grandma gets cancer, go home to visit her. My sister walks up to him to give him a hug. He turns around and almost punches her in the face. And my grandma, on her deathbed, this woman isn't speaking. She's comatose. She's basically just laying there dying. And someone said something, whispered about my dad, and she popped up, looked at them and said, don't speak poorly about Marcel. The last time I had spoken to him, he went on vacation to Jamaica, and the reason I called him a Dusty is he went to Jamaica. My father, who my whole teenage years referred to Black people with the N-word, regardless of what you said or how you told him to stop, went and married a woman from Jamaica and is sending money to build a house. That video actually landed on Jamaican TikTok. They're like, yeah, your dad's being scammed. You should tell him. And I'm like, I'm not getting an inheritance, and that money's better off in her pocket than his. I say all of this to say these insecure, short, balding, broken men that come on the internet, I've dealt with all of it before. Women jumping to defend men dealt with all of it before. Racism. I mean, my grandfather on my mom's side is racist towards Indigenous people, and my grandma's Indigenous, my mom's Indigenous, and therefore I am also Indigenous. And the men that don't like things being talked about on the internet. My dad's not on social media because he owes so many people money, because he has been such a bad person. But when he comes on the internet, things catch up with him, which is why these toxic and abusive men don't like people having conversations about their behaviors. And I can set a clock on the manipulation tactics. He calls, he's sad. These are all voicemails because I don't answer. Then he calls, he's angry. And he calls, he's happy. And he calls and he misses you. And he cycles through these because it's all a manipulation tactic. And I see the same behavior on here.